The Nintendo Switch is an RPG machine, and a lot of you guys have been asking me about what RPGs that you should play. What are the must-buy ones? We've got a lot of new users, people that are just getting into it, so I wanted to do a mega RPG video where I go over nearly 30 RPGs that are must-buys on the Nintendo Switch. I think I got 29 or so here, so we're going to be counting those down in epic fashion and talk about which ones that you should check out on the Nintendo Switch. But before we get into that, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Trials of Mana. Back in like 2019, I think that's when this game was revealed, or 2018, whatever the time this game was revealed. I remember being blown away, blown off of my seat on my reaction at E3. I was so happy to see it come back. I'm an old school Mana fan. I've been playing since the originals back in the day. The Super Nintendo was absolutely incredible for Secret of Mana, and now with this one we've got Trials of Mana, which is a full remake of Seiken Densetsu 3, which was never originally released here in the US. It was Japan only, and we finally got that in the Collection of Mana, and then of course a full Unreal Engine 4 remake. It's an action RPG, it's got a lot of different characters, it's got replay value, it's got really good controls, it's got a great fun little combat system. It's really dope to play, and plus it's cheap right now, so it's pretty cheap. So if you want a fun little action RPG to play in between the bigger releases, you can't really go too wrong with Trials of Mana. Now next up is Atelier Ryza Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout, and Atelier Ryza 2 Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy. Yes, a lot of secrets, a lot of darkness, a lot of lost stuff, but we're gonna find it all here in this video because these are some of the best turn-based RPGs that I have played on the system. Now, some of the other parts don't quite stack up as much. I mean, if you're into the alchemy things, that can be very fun. Some of the graphics can be a bit muddy on the Nintendo Switch. Looks a bit better if you're playing it on PlayStation 4, but I think that these games are very good in what you need to be good at, and that is story, and that's also combat. Both of these games have phenomenal turn-based RPG systems, some of the best that I have ever played on the Nintendo Switch. So you're going to want to check out some Atelier Ryza on the Nintendo Switch. And remember, Atelier Ryza 3 comes out early next year, 2023. So that's also something to kind of get ready for if you want to get into the Atelier Ryza brand of games here. Now, next up is Persona 5 Strikers. This is a very interesting title because it's a Musou battle system inspired game in an action RPG shell. People at first thought that this was just going to be a Musou Persona game, but it's not quite that. There are platforming sections, there are typical normal action RPG sections where you're not fighting against a bunch of people. There are all sorts of other things. It's structured just like a typical action RPG, and some people even like the combat more in this game than the vanilla Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal. I love all the different moves in it. I like the fast-paced action. I like the adventure that this game brings, and the story's really good too. It feels like you are playing that Persona 5 story continued, just in a much different type of way. So I'm definitely going to recommend Persona 5 Strikers. If you want that 60 frames per second though, it is available on PlayStation. In that Nintendo Switch version is 30, but the portability option is really good for a game like this with a lot of content like it has. Now next up is Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. This is a spin-off of the mainline Monster Hunter series, where it's kind of like Pokemon. It is Monster Hunter's take on Pokemon on a much smaller scale, but for the second game in the franchise, I was very impressed with this RE Engine unique game built for the Switch. It's got some nice open-ended areas. It's got a lot of different monsters to breed and collect and kind of customize with different things in there with their moves. It's got some cooperative and also competitive online multiplayer, plus a really good story with plenty of content and a great battle system as well, with super moves and finishers and all sorts of different types of abilities that you can have with your roster of monsters. So I was fairly surprised at how good this game is, especially only in its second entry. The first one was on the Nintendo 3DS, this one is on the Switch, and it sold over 1 million copies very quickly on the platform. So I'm definitely thinking that we're going to get more Monster Hunter stories in the future, maybe on the next gen Nintendo Switch. Now, next up is Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore. This is a port of the Wii U version, but it's actually enhanced a little bit better on the resolution. They've cleared up a couple different things with the game. They've added in extra content that was DLC in the original Wii U game, shaped up a few of the music songs and things like that. There's a number of enhancements to this game that I actually really like it a lot. If you like Mega 10 games, this is one of the best Mega 10 games out there. The press turn system, it's fantastic. If you can get past the anime weeaboo type of presentation that this game has, the combat in here is one of the best, and the story actually isn't too bad. There's some really good things in there. Now, yes, it's not the promise of Shin Megami Tensei cross Fire Emblem like we thought that it was going to be with those characters, but there are some really nice nods to Fire Emblem in there with a Shin Megami Tensei battle system as the driver. So if you're into those type of games, then this one should be on your radar, or maybe it's something that you want to get into. I think you can even find it for a bit cheaper right now as well. Next up is Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana on the Nintendo Switch. This is one of the premier action RPGs that doesn't get talked about enough on the system because it is fantastic. It's got some great mini games. It's got a great battle system. You can switch between different characters. There's a lot of different abilities and spells, and the story is surprisingly deep and good in the long-running Ys franchise. So I highly recommend, if you want a solid action RPG to play with plenty of content and the traditional tropes but done in a really good way, check out Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana on the Nintendo Switch. Next up is Nioh, The World Ends With You, and this game kind of flew right by people because Square Enix kind of flew right by with this game. But don't get it twisted here, guys. Nioh, The World Ends With You is one of the best action RPGs period in this modern time. It is really good. It's actually much better, in my opinion, than the original The World Ends With You, just because of the control method. Yes, that game was a bit unique with the DS back in the day and playing with the touchscreen and all that, but this game has all of the cool stuff from the original when it comes like to the pins and kind of what you do and the really cool music and the stylistic atmosphere and the Shibuya style and everything. It has all of that, but a much better control scheme, at least for me in my big hands. So I really liked what I played of Nioh, The World Ends With You, and the story is like super crazy, twists and turns. I mean, this game's already cheaper too. You can get it for cheaper on the Switch, so this might be a sleeper type of game to play in between the big releases as well. Now, next up is Bravely Default 2. Now, this is a game that actually sold extremely well for the type of game that it is, especially with its review rating of about, I think, a 76 or so. It topped 1 million units very quickly within a number of months on the Nintendo Switch, because people do love that Bravely Default system where you can kind of plus yourself to do extra turns or default and build up your turns. You can have different roles. It's like a classic Final Fantasy game made modern with a different style when it comes to the art and everything. So Bravely Default is a great franchise. I think that it's a lot of fun to play. The story is really good, and you don't need to play Bravely Default 1 or Bravely Second End Layer in order to play this game. Now, I'll give you some more perspective if you play those other ones, but it's essentially like a new adventure like Final Fantasy has been before in the past and everything. So I would highly recommend, if you like turn-based RPGs, if you like classic old school Final Fantasy, you like the job system and classes and all that, Bravely Default 2 is your game. And you might want to try to pick up a physical edition of this because I think this will be rare more later down the line. Now, next up is Octopath Traveler. Speaking of Team Asano and Square Enix, this is an amazing HD 2D game. This was the revolution of the HD 2D RPG for Square Enix, and with good right and value too. I mean, this game is awesome. I love it. It's almost like a Bravely default light. It borrows some aspects from that battle system, a lot of them, but it kind of waters it down just a little bit and then enhances things in some of the other areas, but it is not quite as in-depth as Bravely Default, but it's still extremely good. The art style is really cool as well. Plus, the sequel is coming out in early 2023. So some of you PlayStation users that didn't get to play the original, maybe you can check it out on Switch, or if you have an Xbox, you know, but I highly recommend Octopath Traveler 1. I think that the battle system is awesome. I think that the characters are great. I think the story, while not connected, is still fun to go through with each individual one, and also get some secret bosses and secret caves and different things like you would expect in those classic old school RPGs, Final Fantasy games. So yes, highly recommended to go check out Octopath Traveler. Next up is Fire Emblem Three Houses. This is an incredible strategy RPG experience that I highly recommend to people out there. This game has a plethora of content and great strategy RPG gameplay. One of the things that I absolutely love about it is the recruiting feature, to where you can kind of recruit all these different characters from the different houses and rob them blind as you potentially bludgeon your enemies to death in various different ways based on the path that you pick. And there's tons of replay value as well, with 3 different paths and multiple options within those paths that you do take that lets you see different things or not and access different options at the end. With 2 separate arcs, Fire Emblem Three Houses is the pinnacle of strategy RPGs, right up there with Triangle Strategy. And speaking of Triangle Strategy, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into that game as well, because Triangle Strategy is an incredible strategy RPG, probably my favorite on the Nintendo Switch, and it takes a lot of the elements that we saw in Fire Emblem Three Houses, not as in-depth, more simple in nature, but it gives you a lot of the quality of life options that you wish were there in many other strategy RPGs. The encampment and being able to grind and level up and talk to your teammates and do whatever you need to do with upgrading, and all of that is built in to the game, so you can access it in between story missions, before the mission, after. It's a really good feature. And the Kudos combat system is also incredible, teaching you how to play the game when it comes to exploiting the weaknesses, doing different types of tactics, surrounding your enemy, playing very smart. And the story itself is just beautiful, with the multiple different options and different endings that you can pick from. It is a roller coaster ride that you're going to want to see all the way through. Multiple different difficulties as well for accessibility and everything, and it looks beautiful with the HD 2D. Now, speaking of HD 2D, we've got another game as well, and that is Live Alive, and that has one of the highest quality of HD 2D when it comes to the visuals, outside of what we're going to get with Octopath Traveler 2. But Live Alive is interesting because you play as multiple different characters spread across a arc of story of thousands of years, or whatever the case is, that are all fighting against an entity or evil or something, and then it all kind of comes together at the end once you beat everything. It's got very unique gameplay, it's very quirky, the story is awesome as well, and it's nice bite-sized little chunk RPGs that really just are fun. They are fun, and this game's very creative and inventive, and you're going to have a blast going through Live Alive. And it's a miracle that this game even exists outside of Japan, considering it was made in like 1994, and Square Enix had no intentions on bringing it over to the West until Nintendo said, hey, we would like that. So it took them about 3 years to get that prepared and ready to go on Switch, and I'm super glad that they did, because the game is incredible. Next up is Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes, and this is kind of an alternate story to Fire Emblem Three Houses, because what it does is it takes a what if story and they give you a new protagonist, and Byleth is essentially the bad guy at first. So you're kind of fighting against Byleth and the mercenaries and doing different things in that way, where you meet up and you have to pick between the 3 separate houses. So it's really, really cool in that type of way, and I like what they did with this game. It really is one of those action RPGs that just give you multiple different options, and it kind of evolves upon what Fire Emblem Three Houses did. It did a lot of different things to just evolve upon it and make it better. They added new infrastructure and new ways to access stuff that you're thinking, man, that would have been dope in Fire Emblem Three Houses. So I love the action, I love the combat, I love the mechanics of it. Yes, it can sometimes get a little bit repetitive with characters, but I think that it varies things up with all the other types of options of gameplay that's in there, in terms of leveling up whenever you want, playing the game that you want, replaying missions for better ratings and everything. It really is an in-depth and stacked game, so it is incredible to play. Next up, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I think that Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is an absolutely incredible action RPG as well. Another Muso or Warriors game, and I'm not really big on the Warriors games when it comes to like the standard ones that they have, or Dynasty Warriors or Samurai Warriors, but give me a great themed game and I'm all over it. And Age of Calamity is super fun. It's super fun. It gives you that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild feel. It's 100 years before in the Calamity War, and the characters that are in the game are all kind of unique. They all have their special ways of accessing the Sheikah Slate if they have it, or different types of techniques and moves that they can do. The DLC in the game is very fun and varied. I mean, there is tons of different content in this game, but I just love the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild feel to the game. I love the combat in there. There are some flaws with the frame rate here and there, but overall it's still an incredible experience that I feel that people definitely need to check out on the Nintendo Switch if you like large-scale action RPGs. Now, next up is a game that's near and dear to my heart, and that is Shin Megami Tensei 5 on the Nintendo Switch, exclusive for right now, and it might come over to other systems based off of like some leaks and things like that, but for right now it is exclusive and it is very good. Now, some people think that the story is a little bit weak, and yeah, objectively I do agree with that, but my own self, just me personally, I absolutely love the minimalistic story with the depth of having to do everything in order to kind of see all those pieces be connected. And I can understand it's a bit of a grind. It kind of gets long in the tooth when it comes to what you have to do to see all of the story elements. But if you do, and if you really get into the awesome gameplay of the fusion, the Mega 10 press turn system, where you get those extra turns when you exploit the weaknesses, and when you start fusing your demons, it becomes one of the most addictive and punishing RPGs out there. I spent 150 hours plus, I think, to get everything in this game. It's well worth the value. I'm starting to see it kind of discounted a bit at Walmart and stuff like that. You can get it for 25 to 40 bucks depending on where you go. And I think that for that price at this point, with the quality of game that SMT5 is running on Unreal Engine 4, the graphics look incredible in this game. It actually looks better in a lot of parts than Soul Hackers 2, which just launched on PlayStation and Xbox. So I think that SMT5 is one of those RPGs if you're looking for a hardcore RPG with accessibility options as well, safety modes, and also easy modes as well, then I would say look no further than SMT5. Next up is Dragon Quest Builders and Dragon Quest Builders 2. Two of the older, somewhat forgotten games, but definitely not to be overlooked titles, because if you're like me and you're not big in Minecraft, but you like some of the concepts, but you kind of want an RPG, this is the game. It takes the cool stuff about Dragon Quest, it takes the cool stuff about Minecraft, and it kind of just puts them together in a very satisfying gameplay loop that you're just going to be sitting there and playing forever. It's got a little bit of Animal Crossing feel to it, but once again, more action as well. You're building different things, you're tending to different stuff, you've got raids going on. It is an incredibly in-depth experience, and I would definitely say between these two games, I mean, these are some of the best RPGs, and if you want an alternative to Minecraft, this is it right here. So check out Dragon Quest Builders 1 and Dragon Quest Builders 2, both on the Nintendo Switch, and I think that there's even demos for both of them or one of those games, so you can even download that and try it out for yourself and transfer it over with the save data to the main game. Now, next up is The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero, but honestly, all of the Legend of Hero games on the Nintendo Switch are pretty good, but I'm focusing on The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero because this game is absolutely incredible. I think that this, out of all the Trails games, this one to me kind of speaks to me the most, with the old school flair and style, the combat that they're doing in there, the story as well, the characters. I think it all just clicks, and you're seeing some incredible reviews for this game, over 85 on the Metacritic score, which is hard to do for these hardcore turn-based RPGs from the past and everything. So we have to give Falcom, Nippon Ichi credit for this one here, because they brought this out and it's doing well from what I understand. So if you want a really snappy, modernized, old school RPG with some bells and whistles in there that looks fantastic with the style and everything, great combat, great story, great options, check out The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero on the Nintendo Switch. Now next up is another double pack of games here, and that is Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Now I love both of these games. I have not gotten a chance to really delve into Sunbreak, but I have watched enough to see that, yo, this is incredible. There is no other developer on the Nintendo Switch that is doing what Monster Hunter is doing. For it to have that level of graphic quality and that level of online quality, it is just unheard of on the Nintendo Switch at this point. It uses the new NPLN servers. The online play is smooth. The content keeps coming. There's a bunch of free updates. It gives you a bunch of extra monsters to fight with the Sunbreak DLC expansion. It is great. Monster Hunter fans have been eating and eating and eating with Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. And from my gameplay experience with Monster Hunter Rise, this is one of the most addictive action RPGs that I have ever played. And with Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, they've even added extra things. If you're not big into the whole online aspect, because Monster Hunter is heavily online stuff, you can now have NPCs that fight with you as a party, which is one of the biggest and coolest things that they've ever added to a Monster Hunter experience. And I would definitely like to see them expand that in the future and make that more into a thing. So if you're looking for a really cool action RPG that pushes the Nintendo Switch to the limits tech-wise and also has very good, smooth online play, look no further than Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Now next up is Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition, and this is the prototypical turn-based Japanese RPG. It's perfected. There's not much wrong with Dragon Quest. Now, I'm not huge on the music, I will say that. However, with the redone soundtrack of this game, with the enhanced version, it sounds a lot better than it did when I first originally played it on the PlayStation 4 all those years ago, and the combat is still just as good. It's a very clean, turn-based RPG with some nice twists and turns, but one of the best things about this game is the story. The story is really good in this game. It does take some unexpected stuff when it comes down to it, and there's content out the wazoo, man. You're going to be playing this game for 100 hours plus. There's post-game stuff. It's incredible what they've done here. They've got multiple difficulty levels. They've got everything that you need for an enjoyable, traditional RPG experience with Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Now next up is a bit of a newer title to be ported over, but might be the most impressive port on this list, and that is NieR Automata, the End of YoRHa Edition. I talked about this game a number of times. I have 2 videos out so far where I talk about the reviews, where the reviews so far that have came out are just as high as the PlayStation 4 version, and the comparisons show that the Nintendo Switch version is very close when it comes down to some visual aspects. The frame rate isn't quite 60 frames per second, but it runs at a solid 30 and maintains a good visual balance as well. It's an impressive port for an open-ended game like this, and if you're playing it on the Nintendo Switch OLED, it is incredible. But what you're going to get with this game is a phenomenal story with a lot of replay value, with multiple different pathways. The story in this game is really good, which is not necessarily typical of Platinum games, but this game in general has an incredible story, much better than what we've seen before in the past from them. And then on top of that, the combat. The combat is incredible. You have a lot of options. You've got a lot of different types of combos that you can do. You can level up quite a bit, and the game kind of changes genres at times. It's got some old school twin stick shooter in it, side scrolling, of course, typical Devil May Cry style action, RPG elements as well. It's just a smorgasbord of incredibleness. RPG goodness. Like, it is one of the best that I've played, and I already played it on the PlayStation 4, but the Nintendo Switch version is very impressive, and you can take that version anywhere that you want with a physical copy of the game for $39.99. It comes out October 6th. Incredible to see. Definitely pick up NieR Automata, the end of YoRHa edition on the Nintendo Switch, especially if you haven't played it on Xbox, PC, or PlayStation. Now, next up is a game that a lot of you guys argue with me whether it's a RPG or not, and that is Astral Chain. Now, yes, classified as an action game, I get that, but there's so many RPG elements, and we were just talking about NieR Automata. The same person who made that game in terms of the producer, Mr. Tura-san, is the same person here with Astral Chain, and a lot of those elements did carry over. You can see some of the DNA with the combat and other things. Now, they're different games. Yes, it's completely different. It's not the same. But what Astral Chain does, in my opinion, that makes it a great action RPG, they've got the experience and leveling. They've got the party members, but the party members are handled in a little bit of a different way. Yes, you sometimes have some of the other Neuron members fighting with you, but they're not always with you all the time. But it's your legions. You have multiple different legions that all play different roles or classes. You have an attacker, you've got a long range, you got defenders, you've got all sorts of stuff, and they all level up, learn new abilities, can do magic type attacks at times as well, and also serve different purposes in the game to traverse and to get to different places. It is an incredible mash of action and also RPG as well. I think the game is incredible. You have the damage numbers, you have all the things that make of an action RPG. You have the story and saving kind of what's going on here. I'm not going to spoil that, but Astral Chain is one of the most underrated games in my opinion. This isn't an 86 or 87 or whatever it got. It's like a 90 in my opinion plus, because of the game's graphical style, because of the audio. The music is fantastic. I think that the story, yes, maybe isn't the strongest, but I think the other things is just so good and it's unique. There's no other game that plays like Astral Chain on the market. There's not going to be something where you say, oh, okay, yeah, there's other action games that play like that or do what it does. It is really unique. It's really good. The controls are definitely something that you have to get used to, but once you do, it's going to feel like nothing. It's going to feel like it's just super smooth. There's tons of content, and that's what I love about this game as well. There's no extra DLC to buy or anything. You get everything on the cart, extra missions after you beat the game. There's tons of replay value, lots of achievements. The combat is just super buttery smooth and fun to play as. I mean, you're going to be playing this game for a while because it's that good. So yes, pick up Astral Chain. Next up is Persona 5 Royal, and this is probably the best turn-based RPG on this list and one of the greatest turn-based RPGs of all time. Persona 5 Royal, it deserves every bit of praise that it got originally with the Persona 5 base back in 2016/2017, and then also Persona 5 Royal on the PlayStation 4 back in 2019. This game is incredible. It adds a bunch of quality of life options in addition to a brand new semester and a new female protagonist as well. You have to kind of dig to get through some of the meat and potatoes of the content towards the end, but man, you are not going to regret it if you pick up Persona 5 Royal. And I feel that on the Nintendo Switch, because of the battle system, it's the press turn Mega 10. We've talked about it. We have multiple Mega 10 games-ish style on here. Persona has that, but it does it in such a cool and sleek way with the menus and the navigation and the combat. There are tons of different personas to collect. They have a really cool way of registering them and bringing them back, really cool way of capturing them as well. You've got a lot of varied dungeons in this game. You've got an incredible story. You've got a bunch of of side quests to do. Persona 5 Royal is going to be immaculate on the Nintendo Switch, and it's going to be one of those games. Yes, it's not going to have the 60 frames per second as the other versions, but what it's going to have is that portability factor, and I'm telling you guys, that is going to be big for these 100-hour RPGs where it's just turn-based and you have to just press a button and then they do the attack. You're going to want to be able to do other things, watch TV, do something else, and also play that and get the time to play it as well. I think that it's a perfect match for the Nintendo Switch, so I highly recommend picking up Persona 5 Royal. Now, next and last up here is a 4-pack of awesomeness, and we're going to start out with, you guys I guess already know at this point, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna, the Golden Country, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. All of these games need to be played. All of these games need to be experienced. And the reason why that they need to be experienced is because this is the greatest story trilogy-ish thingy of all time, in my opinion, when it comes to RPGs. The way that these games connect, the emotions that you feel, the story roller coaster, along with the open-ended and just pure gameplay portions of it. It's a perfect mix of story-based and action RPG combat done completely unique to anybody else on the market. When it comes to console RPGs, you're not gonna play a lot of games like these, and these games give you plenty of value for your buck. Definitive Edition has updated graphics, it's got a bunch of quality of life features, it's got a whole new segment called Future Connected that you can play before or after the main campaign, which I do recommend playing it after you beat the original Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition or Xenoblade Chronicles game. And then you have the much maligned Xenoblade Chronicles 2 by some, but it's still the best-selling game in the series so far. It's going to be overtaken by Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is still a great game with some flaws here and there, but it's a lot of fun and the basis for many of the ideas that they use for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So I really enjoyed it, especially with the story. You got to connect Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. You got to play both of them and understand what happens to really get the most out of the story. And then, of course, Torna, the Golden Country, which is the prequel to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which you understand the origin or the history of what happened to the events leading up to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It is a very important piece, and no real Xenoblade Chronicles fan is going to miss out on exactly how Pyra got started and what was happening there, and just like the setup and everything. The gameplay is also improved as well. They actually fixed a number of things. I actually like Torna, the Golden Country more than Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and more than Xenoblade Chronicles X, for example. It's a very good game despite being a smaller Xenoblade experience. And then, of course, the creme de la creme, to me, the peak, the best action RPG of all time, which I talked about in my review, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. This game is incredible. I did 200 hours plus, and I'm still going through New Game Plus stuff. It is a great game. A lot of the ideas, like I said, from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 made it into here, but it was perfected. A lot of the stuff from Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and X, it's accumulation of all of the best things from various different Xenoblade games put into it. New coat of paint, seamless battles right there, true open world. It really is that good and needs to be experienced. All of these Xenoblade games are incredible. It's gonna take a lot of time if you haven't done it, but I highly suggest getting into the Xenoblade franchise. You will not regret it. So those are must-play Nintendo Switch RPGs out there. What did I miss? What other games are the must-play RPGs to you guys out there? I would love to hear what you think in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next video. Peace.